When discussing a trade, it's almost always a bad idea to declare a winner right away, yet everybody still does it. And I'm certainly no exception to that. I make videos on most of the trades that happen in the NHL and usually declare a winner before even seeing a player play a single game with their new team. In doing this, a lot of times myself and many others are wrong about a trade, and that is exactly what we're going to be talking about in this video. I'm going to take a look at 5 recent NHL trades that everybody was wrong about, and before you go down to the comment section and say, oh, but I wasn't wrong about this trade, I actually thought this team was the winner. When saying everybody, I'm really just talking about the majority of people. I know not every single person was wrong about the trades we're going to talk about in the video. But real quickly before we begin, if you guys are new to the channel and you want to see more NHL content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We're getting super close to 40,000. And with all that out of the way, let's not waste any more time and jump right into the video. We're going to start off by talking about a trade that happened on last season's February 25th deadline that sent Mikael Granlund to the Nashville Predators in a 1-for-1 swap for Kevin Fiala. This was definitely a trade that kind of came out of left field and caught a lot of people off guard. Mikael Granlund was coming off of back-to-back seasons in which he scored 20 or more goals and 67 or more points, and on the other hand, Kevin Fiala was a somewhat unproven player who had just 10 goals in 64 games for the Predators in the 18-19 season before being sent to Minnesota at the deadline. Despite Kevin Fiala being the younger of the two players, you can kind of get a gist of why a lot of people thought the Nashville Predators were the clear winners in this trade before even seeing any of these guys play a single game with their new team. And if you don't believe me that a lot of people felt this way, well, here are some photos to kind of back that up. This is a poll from an Instagram account after the trade happened that had 80% of the people voting in favor of the Predators winning this trade. Next up, we have an article from SB Nation titled "Fenton Fumbled the Granlund Trade." In this article, they went on to say, 1. Kevin Fiala seems like he's a good young player with upside. He will be an asset to this Wild moving forward, which definitely turned out to be true. Number 2, they said this was a bad trade, which just didn't turn out to be true whatsoever. Let's take a quick look at both of these players' stats after being traded. In 79 games, Mikael Granlund has 18 goals and 17 assists for 35 points as a member of the Nashville Predators, and looking at Kevin Fiala, in 83 games played so far for the Minnesota Wild, he has racked up a total of 26 goals and 35 assists for 61 points. He was one of the biggest breakout stars from the 2019-20 season. Not only has Kevin Fiala just put up much better numbers, like I mentioned, he is also the younger player at just 23 years old and is most likely going to be a massive part of this Minnesota Wild team moving forward. And in the case of Mikael Granlund, well, he is set to become an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, and with Nashville not necessarily having a lot of money to spare, I think there's a really strong chance we see Granlund on a new team come next season, and that would then leave the Nashville Predators having nothing to show for trading away Kevin Fiala. I think it's safe to say that a lot of us, including myself, were wrong about this trade. Moving along now to the next trade, this one taking place just last offseason, that sent Jacob Trouba to the New York Rangers in exchange for Neil Pionk and the New York Rangers 2019 first-round pick, which was actually the Jets' first-round pick originally that they traded to New York for Kevin Hayes the season prior. Kinda confusing, but it's pretty much just the Jets getting back their first-round pick and ultimately using it to select Ville Heinola 20th overall in the 2019 draft. This was a trade that everybody saw coming. Despite Jacob Trouba being a fantastic defender for the Jets from 2013 to 2019, they were never able to agree on a long-term contract and actually went through the arbitration process not once but twice. On top of that, Jacob Trouba preferred to play in the United States to be closer to his fiancée who was studying to become a doctor. Coming off of a career year in Winnipeg, a lot of people believe the Jets were fleeced in this trade. I mean, just look at this article by the Hockey Writers titled, "Is Trouba Trade Truly Terrible for the Jets?" Well, looking back at the trade right now, the short answer to that headline would almost certainly be no. It is not terrible for the Jets whatsoever. Taking a quick look at the stats of both Jacob Trouba and Neil Pionk in their first seasons with their new team after the trade, in 71 games, Pionk put up 6 goals and 39 assists for 45 points, leading all Jets defensemen in goals, assists, points, and ice time. Looking at how Trouba did in his first season in New York, well, his numbers took a massive dip from the season prior in Winnipeg, putting up just 7 goals and 20 assists for 27 points in 70 games, and was arguably the third best defender on the team team behind Fox and D'Angelo. Considering the fact that after acquiring him, the Rangers signed Trouba to a 7-year, $56 million contract that pays him $8 million per season, they're gonna need a lot more than that from him. And I know when it comes to defensemen, there's a lot more than just the points, but the Rangers didn't pay Jacob Trouba all that money just to come in and be a physical presence back there. They paid him to come in and be the #1 defenseman on the team and have an overall solid game. And he just didn't really have a good season. If they wanted to bring in a defender that was just gonna bring a physical presence, well then they would have went out and brought back Dylan McIlrath on a league minimum contract. All in all, I think it's safe to say that Neil Pionk was the better defender than Jacob Trouba this season. And not only that, in making this trade, the Jets saved a lot of money as Pionk is a much cheaper option than Trouba, and of course getting Ville Heinola with that first round pick is a huge bonus as he already has played some NHL games and played very well and is gonna be a huge asset for the Jets moving forward. Considering that at the time the trade happened, everybody thought the Jets got fleeced by the Rangers, it actually turned out to be a really good trade for the Jets. Next up, let's talk about the 1-for-1 trade that happened in June of 2016. Shea Weber to the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for PK Subban going back to Nashville. And I don't think people were wrong about this trade in the sense that Shea Weber wasn't going to be a good player for Montreal. It's the fact that PK Subban is 3 years younger and Shea Weber is on that ridiculous 14-year contract that pays him just under $8 million per season up until the end of the 2025-26 season. And taking into account that shortly after acquiring Weber, the Montreal Canadiens had to re-up the contract of Carey Price, you could see why some people were concerned here. With that said though, let's take a look at the stats of Shea Weber in Montreal and PK Subban in Nashville. 227 games played for Weber, 52 goals and 72 assists for 127 points. Some pretty solid totals. On top of that, he's obviously a great two-way defender. Looking at Subban's time in Nashville, 211 games played, 35 goals and 95 assists for 130 points, and was a massive part of the team making it to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2017. Overall, Weber has been really good in Montreal, and Subban had some great years in Nashville, so why is this trade in the video? Well, it's the fact that back when this trade happened, a lot of people were leaning to Nashville in terms of who won the trade, and I don't really think anyone saw Nashville unloading PK Subban's contract as kind of a cap dump before Montreal had any problems with Shea Weber's big contract. Because as we all know, this past summer, Nashville traded PK Subban to the New Jersey Devils for a couple of players that will most likely never make it as full-time NHLers and a couple of second-round picks. It was pretty much just a cap dump. And Subban's first season in New Jersey was pretty awful. It was arguably the worst season of his entire career, and Shea Weber is still giving Montreal some quality production and is the captain and best defender on that team. I just feel like back when this trade originally happened, people would have thought the roles would be reversed and Shea Weber's contract would have been the big problem and his play would be declining much sooner than PK Subban's. Moving along now to the next trade, another one that happened last summer that saw the Vancouver Canucks acquire JT Miller from the Tampa Bay Lightning in exchange for Marek Mazanik, a 2019 third-round pick, and a conditional 2020 first-round pick. The conditions on the first-rounder being if Vancouver were to miss the playoffs this season, then that first-round pick would turn into a 2021 guaranteed first-rounder. But of course, Vancouver did make the playoffs, so Tampa Bay does indeed get that 2020 first. I remember the exact day this trade happened, scrolling through Twitter, seeing the absolute outrage from so many Vancouver Canucks fans. And it's not because anybody thought that JT Miller was a bad player. Everybody knew he was a relatively solid top 6 forward. It's just the fact that it was extremely risky trading away a first round pick in one of the 2 upcoming drafts for a team that definitely was not guaranteed to make the playoffs in one of the 2 upcoming seasons. I mean, Vancouver was still kind of just coming out of that rebuild. But it definitely didn't take very long for JT Miller to quiet all the people that were hating on this trade. You look at his numbers in the 2018-19 season for Tampa Bay, 13 goals, 34 assists for 47 points in 75 games. Solid numbers, but was he worth the risk? Well, his 2019-20 stats with the Canucks speak for themselves. 27 goals, 72 points in just 69 games. JT Miller went from being a decent top 6 forward to a bona fide star for Vancouver. The NBA has an award called the Most Improved Player Award. It's something I had always wished the NHL would implement. If they did have this award, I think JT Miller would definitely have to be one of the favorites from this past season. The final trade we're going to talk about in the video took place on September 13th of 2018. the Erik Karlsson trade. The Sharks acquired Erik Karlsson along with Francis Perron in exchange for Chris Tierney, Josh Norris, Dylan DeMello, Rudolph Balcers, and a lot of draft picks. The draft picks included a 2019 second round pick, a 2019 or 2020 conditional first round pick, a 2021 conditional first or second round pick, and a 2022 conditional first round pick. Yes, that is a lot to give up, but even at the time of the trade, it still didn't feel like a lot considering Ottawa was trading away their franchise player who had been one of the very best defenders in the entire NHL throughout the decade, winning a Norris Trophy in 2012, a Norris Trophy in 2015, and basically dragging the Ottawa Senators to the Eastern Conference Finals on one leg back in 2017. But looking back at the trade now, it has actually set the Ottawa Senators up big time. But real quickly before we get into all of that, let's take a look at Erik Karlsson's stats so far with the San Jose Sharks. The 2018-19 season, which was his very first with the Sharks, he did struggle with injury a little bit, but still put up 45 points in 53 games. This past 2019-20 season, 40 points in 56 games. Overall, still solid, Erik Karlsson offensive numbers, but his overall game has not came anywhere close to what it was in Ottawa. And considering the fact that the Sharks are going to be paying Erik Karlsson $11.5 million per year over the next 7 seasons, he's gonna have to start playing like Ottawa Erik Karlsson soon, or this could get pretty ugly. But now let's praise the Senators. Starting with an underrated piece of the trade, Chris Tierney, he's given Ottawa some great production over the past 2 seasons and is still only 25 years old. Prospect Josh Norris absolutely lit it up in the American Hockey League this season for Belleville, scoring 31 goals and 61 total points in just 56 games. He looks like he's gonna be a massive part of Ottawa's future. And then of course, that first round pick that they got from the Sharks is gonna be extremely valuable considering San Jose had an awful year, and now of course Ottawa has the chance to land not 1 but 2 amazing prospects at the upcoming 2020 NHL draft. Like I said, a trade that so many people were ripping up Ottawa for back when it actually happened has now set them up for the future big time, which is just pretty crazy. But that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to let me know down in the comment section below what are some other trades that we didn't talk about in today's video that you thought would end up working out one way that did a complete 180 and proved you wrong. If you did enjoy the video, please make sure to go down there and drop a like on it. That's the best way to show your support. And of course, if you guys are new to the channel and you want to see more NHL content like this, then be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all in the next video.